Hey, welcome back. I have another video where I'm going to take a look at a possible list for 2,000 points of Astra Militarum Imperial Guard in 9th edition with the new Codex based on the points cost I'm familiar with. They might not be 100% correct, but to kind of counter that, I left some points free anyways. So once I get my book in hand, maybe if I'm lucky Friday, but most likely on Monday, then I'll be able to confirm these numbers, but I think they're right. So anyways, there was a request for a list, just my thoughts on one, and it was something I was already working on, and that is a list that was using Ogryns, and I really like Ogryns in this edition. I think they seem pretty good, and I thought they would pair well with Rough Riders. I can't remember if the person also asked for Rough Riders to be included. I think they have a little bit of synergy there as the two sort of heavy hitters when it comes to close combat. Imperial Guard, we're not like a close combat army. So I feel like if you're going to go for close combat units at all, you really should try to get a bunch of them just to make sure you, A, get stuff to combat. It doesn't just get wiped out. But also, B, that you have enough punch to actually make it worthwhile to invest in this stuff. But you also need to still make sure you have your heavy hitting range and you have your bodies. Guard are a really tricky army to make when you want to do close combat, in my opinion. They always have been, because you have to plan specifically around that, but you still can't give up on what we used to call the 3 Gs of guard, the guys, guns, and good tanks. Because it doesn't matter how good the Ogryns are or the Rough Riders, especially at the cost of them, they're probably not going to do enough damage to actually, win you a game. And they're still going to take casualties, especially the Rough Riders. They're going to get knocked out if there's not something there to distract the enemy from them. Yes, they're deadly, but if that's all they need to worry about, then once they kill those, which should only take 1, maybe 2 turns of shooting for most armies, there's just not going to be enough left to really do any damage. So getting into the list, I'm going to go over here to the HQ. I have a Castellan and a Cadian command squad, and then a tank commander. So this is a battalion. This one doesn't need a brigade because we are going to focus on some of the more expensive units, which means you don't need all those troop slots. So there's no need to go for the 4 DP detachment. Also, we have 5 units of Cadian shock troops. Because the army is close combat oriented, it's probably best to keep everything sort of moving together to allow you the most flexibility in where your shooting can be targeted, but also so that you can do some level of screening to make sure that units that maybe need to make sure they don't get charged themselves have a little bit of cover. I know it doesn't really matter in the game, but I don't know. It's just how I play. I think it's a leftover mentality of all the years I've played all the different editions. It might not really be worthwhile. You can tell me in the comments how terrible my strategy here is, but I do think having 5 units of Cadian shock troops moving forward with a command squad and a Castellan is going to give you a lot of options in terms of firepower. Right now, I'm thinking a plasma gun and a melta-gun might be a good mix. I don't know. My heart tells me just to go with 2 plasma guns, but I've always liked having a mixed option in my units. If my melta-guns get wiped out because the 2 units with melta-guns are killed and I need them, then that doesn't really help me. But again, that's probably me making a mistake. I do admit that, especially when it comes to 9th edition, I'm rusty. After that, 2 units of kasrkin. I do think 2 units of kasrkin might almost be mandatory for guard because of the firepower and the abilities they offer with that extra doctrine. These guys are going to be inside chimeras. One of them probably mechanized, just so they can get out and behave more normally. And the other one probably guerrilla fighters. Although I do like industrial efficiency on them, just so they can get out And if they're shot at with, standard sort of weapons, they're still going to maintain that 4+ armor save until they start getting shot at with like AP2 weapons. The last unit here in the elites, these here are your Ogryns, 5 of them. There are points to put one more in and still have plenty of points for like upgrades and stuff, I think, across the board. But this is sort of down to me still tinkering whether I want one more Ogryn or a few more Rough Riders, which, 2 units of 8 Rough Riders make up my fast attack. They are very expensive. I think they're overcosted for what they are. They are still just guardsmen, even with 2 wounds. They're not hard to kill. I think a glass cannon like this probably should be costed closer to 15 points. That's sort of like, again, what my heart is telling me. These just feel like for 10 of them, they're about 50 points too expensive at 20 points apiece, or 200 points for a squadron of 10 of these little Lancer dudes. I think if they were 150 points for 10, it would be a lot simpler to just say, oh yeah, it's 300 points to grab 2 of them. But it's 300 points well spent if you use them right, and the enemy doesn't just automatically remove them every single game, which is why you have other options for them to shoot at. In this case here, heavy support, 3 more Leman Russ to go with the command tank. So a standard, and plasma executioner. These guys here are going to be your ranged firepower along with your tank commander. Obviously, it's going to be down to personal preference or, what tanks you own. I own probably 20 Leman Russ at least. But I don't own 2 plasma executioners actually, which is funny with all the stuff I own. I don't own 2 of those. But I do think I own 2 of the las cannon ones that used to be in Forge World. And then I own laser destroyer tanks, and I own a Conqueror. I own stuff that is actually harder to get. Now that this is a plastic kit, I think I just never really bought one. I think the only plastic I even have for it's not plastic, it's a resin third-party turret. I don't think I even have a GW plasma executioner. But yeah, it might be better to have 1 more of those, maybe even 2. The price is basically all the same if you give them a las cannon, as far as I understand. There might be slight variances in price, but again, I did leave some blank points to cover that. And yeah, that's the list. I mean, that's about 2,000 points. I think on the board right now, it's about 1,930 points before any upgrades. So once you start throwing some spawns in, some tank aces, those will get eaten up pretty quick. I think at most you want to spend on upgrades would probably be 100 points. And that's stretching it because you can get other stuff for those points. It's going to be down to what is, going to actually help you in the long run. More sponsons and maybe a more survivable tank versus maybe even just another tank. It's going to be down to how you can work this out. I mean, obviously this will need tweaking because I've never even played a game of 9th edition in the last year, and at least a year since I've played 9th edition. So let alone the new book, I really just don't know how 9th edition plays anymore. But I do think this list, based on the battle reports I've been watching, I have been watching some battle reports of 9th edition just to kind of get a feel for how the game is playing right now. Specifically also battle reports by YouTubers who have the new book, so I can see how the new stuff is working. Yeah, I think this list might work. I'm sure somebody who's much better than me can tweak this and sort of refine it, but I think at its core, this is what a close combat guard army should try to look like. There might be some changes, like maybe swapping one of these kasrkin and chimeras out for more Ogryns. That could be viable. Ogryns are super tough, and these 2 units, if I understand the points correctly, would give you enough to buy 6 more Ogryns. So even saying that out loud, I think I might even want the 6 more Ogryns. But having mobility is nice. So I don't know. That one there, maybe somebody in the comments can let me know what they think. I think maybe actually even swapping out one of these units of kasrkin and their chimera might be better for another unit of Ogryns at 6. That would give you 11 Ogryns in this list, and there's points left over to make them both 6. So 2 units of 6 Ogryns might actually be really good in this list. But again, I was trying to balance the whole the 3 Gs as I was talking about. So again, guys, guns, and tanks. It's a old, I don't know if you'd call it a meme, but an old thing that we used to joke about as guard players like 20 years ago. Any older players, if you remember the guys, guns, tanks, and just let me know in the comments if you're that old, or if even you were seeing that on the internet on the places you were looking. This was something I was seeing on places like what was that website? Warseer? I think it was called Warseer. And the old GW website, when they used to have a forum that we could play on, or to talk on and leave messages before they took that away. Anyways, yeah, that is my thoughts on a 2,000 point list that is close combat oriented, but still offers enough firepower that I think you should be able to do damage to your enemy as you move forward. I still think 4 Leman Russ is quite powerful. Again, maybe some more Ogryns, or even swapping these guys even for another tank. I don't know. But yeah, just something to think about. I think this is a pretty good starting point. So I forget offhand who asked for this, and I don't have my phone in front of me to open it up and just go look. So I apologize, but whichever user asked me, whichever viewer asked me about this list and what I would use, this I hope helps you. And thanks very much for watching, everybody. Have a great day.